And here we are. Good morning, afternoon, evening, depending on where you're joining me from, everybody here on LinkedIn. We are here. We are live. So glad you could join me on this fine Monday morning, this very hot and humid Monday morning here in London, Ontario, Canada. Is it as hot where you are, where it is here? The Humidex is off the charts. But it was still cooler than what it was like in Infocom in Orlando. Somehow, I don't know how. We've got the air conditioning cranked up as high as it will go, so I am nice and comfy. The machine here is holding some really nice temperatures. Good morning. Good morning, Robert. Good afternoon. Reminds me of the days of the ZX Spectrum or Commodore computer. Yeah, no, the VCR font. I love that font. Hey, Morton. So glad you could join. So glad you could join in. Oh, man, we've got people coming in. This is awesome. All right. I don't want to waste anybody's time, so we're probably going to just leap right into things as soon as we can here. So let's talk about Multiviews. We're going to be talking about the Multiview update for Q2 and what we've got coming up in the next little while. So let's jump right into things here. Let's talk about Multiview for NDI. First off, to everybody that has bought a Multiview for NDI license, a huge, huge thank you. I appreciate the heck out of you. This has meant a lot to my business, has meant a lot to everybody I've worked with. So for those of you that have licenses for Multiview and you've been sending in pictures of how you've been using it, thank you so much. It's so cool to see this used in the field. So you may recall back in April, we did the relaunch of Multiview. The betas kind of came out, and then May, there was a good stable release for Windows and Linux. So very happy about that. So where have we gone since then? Well, 2025-05, that's when we took Multiview and used it to power a 3-day hybrid conference. You're actually using it the whole time at that conference. We had 2 breakout rooms. We used Multiview and router for NDI to power our downstage monitors, countdown timers, confidence monitors, you name it. We also used it for control. Definitely taught me more than a couple lessons about how the UI needed to be tweaked for future shows. But survived all 3 days. Didn't need a restart, didn't need a reboot, was fantastic. Super pleased about that. As you may have also seen, I've been working with one of the Densitron panels. It's right behind me here. And these are fantastic rack-mounted control panels, right? Like, they are absolutely fantastic. Got a version of Multiview running on here, just do some visual routing. There's some more stuff in the works with the Densitron units, so not going to spend too much time on that, but just know that we've got Multiview running there, and it has opened up a few new interesting control scenarios for NDI. So really excited to talk more about that in the future. But let's talk about the latest release, which is the release that dropped on Friday. This was going to be the 623 release, but we released it Friday as a soft launch to everybody, and now it's officially out. So what is in the 620 release? Or if you've not taken a look at this since the April release, what is new in Multiview right now? So one of the biggest things we added, tally state display. So before, if you wanted to display tally state, NDI tally state for any of your sources, you needed to kind of build that manually. You would need to add a PNG for each of your surfaces, each of your sources that you wanted a tally state for. And then you'd have one for preview, you'd have one for program, and then you'd need a glue utility that would show and hide those. Got rid of that. Tucker in our Discord chat, showed me how Ross does some of their tally state management. So I said, okay, cool, let's see what we can do, and implemented a much better tally state display, which I'll show you in a minute, but that is now in. Big request. You might have seen them bouncing behind me. Audio meters. Yes, we now have audio metering back in Multiview for NDI. It's not just limited to 2 channels either. It's going to display as many channels as if we've got space for. I'll show you that in a moment. In the Discord community, if you're there, you now have access to a Mac OS beta build. So just message me for the details. I'll send you the Mac OS beta build. Again, this is the build for M series Mac, so M1 and newer. We're not going to be doing any builds for Intel. Apple has said that's a dead platform. We don't want to support it. So beta Mac OS builds are now available, and hoping to have a fully quote-unquote stable one out by the end of the summer. Another feature that was added was what's called portable mode. So before, all the configuration for Multiview was stored in a folder in your home directory, and now that same information can be stored alongside the application. So the idea is you add a file called portable.txt, or just call it portable, put it in the same folder as Multiview, and now all the config, all the data, and the executable can all move around with each other. You can zip that file, you can zip that whole folder up, move it to a new machine, and it will just work. So this keeps data and Multiview executable together, portable mode. I'm actually using it as my default operating mode for Multiview these days, just because it makes it a lot easier to make your instance portable. And we got some more docs coming around that. By the way, if you've not been to the website, multiviewforndi.com in a little while, on the website I put a link to the new documentation, the new Gitbook documentation for Multiview for NDI. So we've got a lot of stuff documented, great quick start guide. Go check that out. We've got some docs. Other new features, PNG overlays. Yes, including alpha transparency. So if you've seen any of the screenshots I posted with the I am a PNG from heck, that is what I've been testing. So we can now take a PNG, upload it, and render it wherever you want on your surface. We've got new multi-line captions. So if you want captions that are centered and run multiple lines and have a fixed width, that's in there now. So that was a request from a user, so got that implemented. We also have a new linear interpolation mode, so a scaling mode. So by default, for Multiview performance, we do what's called nearest neighbor. And in that mode, if you're scaling something up like a proxy feed to a much larger box, it will look blocky. And same if you're scaling something down, it may look quite blocky. That's just inherent of nearest neighbor mode. So we now have a linear interpolation mode. That should be in our documentation. If not, I'll make sure that gets called out. Now, it does trade off using more cores to do the linear interpolation, but it's much faster than the old linear interpolation was. So very happy about that. Question in the chat, is the beta for macOS available for licensed users? Or can I test it before I purchase the license? Yeah, if you want to test out the macOS beta before purchasing a license, by all means, send me a direct message. I'll hook you up with a test copy. Honestly, the biggest limitation with the macOS build has been distributing a macOS app can be a little bit squirrely. We've got that whole build process working. It's just a matter of actually sitting down and getting a macOS build out. There's also a few code paths that are not quite as efficient on macOS as they are on Windows and Linux for x86. So I think I want to get, in the final version, I want there to at least be very close performance parity. The macOS version does not perform as well as the Windows and Linux version. I want to make sure they perform roughly on par before we get that out. So why don't I show you some of the new changes in Multiview for NDI? I've been talking a little bit about what do things look like, what are the new features. Let's actually go and take a look at the latest features in Multiview for NDI. So right now I've got my studio monitor pulled up, and I'm just looking at one of my main outputs. You'll notice that the audio meter is dancing. So a little behind the scenes spoiler here, actually connected over NDI bridge back to the production house. Shout out Michael, thank you so much. I'm glad he's got upgraded to fiber. It's such a life changer, fiber optic. I've got the return feed coming back from him, and I can see my audio meters bouncing. So these are all NDI feeds. These 4 meters here, these aren't fixed meters, by the way. These are the volume levels that are coming in from test pattern. So if I bring test pattern over here, right now I've got it set to plus 18. If I set it to plus 24, we've kind of maxed out. Set it to 0, so the meters respond. And you'll notice that test pattern sends out 4 channels of audio, so we've got 4 meters here. You also notice this one. Again, this is tuned into test patterns. I got 4 bars of audio here, right? So I'm just displaying as many bars as I've allocated space for. So I'll come in here. I'll show you how I've set everything up in Multiview for NDI. This is the web interface I'm using here. So a couple things that have changed in the web interface, if you haven't been in edit layout for a little while. You'll notice that we've got a couple different layers. We've now got layer selection available, so selecting viewports, captions, images, and audio meters. This tally indicator arrow, this is just a custom PNG. This is just a straight custom PNG that I just made this on Canva, exported it as a PNG with transparency, and added this to my output. And this is the result. This is what it looks like. Now for the audio meters, if I click on one of these audio meters, I've got settings here to say how much of a gap do I want displayed between audio bars, and then how wide do I want all of my audio bars. I can select all the way from 2 pixels all the way up to 64 pixels wide. And Multiview will just try to scale the width of each of my audio meters to fill up as much space as possible, right? So if right now I've just got everything left on auto size. Now, I'm not limited to these audio meters being, say, how wide is this right now? 46 pixels wide. I've got full control over this. So if I want to make this, I don't know, let's go for 200 pixels wide. You want to make a 200 pixel wide audio meter? By all means, fly at it. 200 pixels wide, 360 pixels high. And this guy, I'm going to say a channel gap 2 pixels, and I want to auto size the bars. I'm going to save my changes. I'll come back to Multiview, and now I've got my bars. I've still only got 4 channels worth of audio to display here, but it's displaying current audio level for that NDI source. And again, I don't have to have those audio meters beside, on the left-hand side. I can move them over here. I'll move the viewport over. I'll move the audio meters over, deselect, hit Save Changes, come back to Studio Monitor, and now my audio meters are on the right. So one of the reasons that I implemented it this way was I really, really wanted to have, this has been a core design principle I've had for Multiview for NDI. I don't want to force my way of thinking for production process on you, right? My team and I, we have our own way of producing broadcasts, but you may have a different way. You might want your audio meters on the right-hand side of your Multiview. You might want them on the left. Eventually, I want to have horizontal audio meters. Some people like horizontal audio meters. Some people like vertical audio meters. I don't want to force the way that I do my work on you. I want to leave as much flexibility as reasonably possible. While keeping in mind that any of these decisions in some way are going to influence the way that you do your work if you're using Multiview for NDI. So that's been one of my design principles. I tried not to force my way of thinking onto your way of thinking. So we're just keeping this, we're keeping Multiview as flexible as we can. All right, so that's the new audio meters. Some of the other features that we had in, of course, I mentioned we had the overlay, the PNG overlays. Now, let's talk about tally state for a second. So you may notice that on my test pattern here, I have this red border along with an upper right red triangle. So what's this all about? So let's talk about the tally features. So now what we're able to do is we're able to set tally borders and tally flags for the entire Multiview, or we can set it on each individual viewport. So for example, I could say for all my viewports, I want to display the preview flag in the top left, and I want to display the program flag in the top right. For top left, I want to use preview triangle, and I want to use program triangle, and then I want to make sure that all these borders get set to green for preview and red for program. Now if I hit apply to all viewports and save changes, my way of doing tally has now been applied to the program. So I could come back in here as well and say, you know what, maybe I want a preview, I want the default preview flag and the default program flag. I want to display preview flag on top center, but I want to display program flag on bottom center. I'm going to apply this to all viewport, save changes, come back to Multiview here. So now I've got program on the middle bottom, and preview flag would be at the top right, or at the top center, excuse me. Now, what is tuning into this source on program? Well, it's another program that I'll show you in a few minutes called Full View for NDI, but I'm not going to spoil that yet. Question from the chat: where are the external NDI feeds coming in from? How are they coming in, and what is the delay? Very good question. So My camera is a Logitech Mevo Start, so that is connected in via NDI. We're actually using NDI webcam to give that to Zoom, and then Zoom is being transport, and then we're using Zoom as the main transport to get my signal back to studio, and we're using vMix to mix everything together. I'm receiving a return feed via NDI. We've got NDI bridge from location to location, so there's a little bit of signal chaining going on here. The share, actually, you know what? Let's go behind the scenes. Let me show you exactly what's going on here. I think I have another viewer here, and I'll use NDI Discovery. So I'm running NDI 6.2, by the way. I'll show you a little behind the scenes. Here's the signal flow that we've got going on. We've got our main vMix rig up here in upper left. So it's taking in all our feeds. I've got my own share screen that I'm sending. We're capturing desktop for slides. My team's got a behind the scenes view of the slides. Good, it's low resolution, so we're not going to spoil any of the content yet. So we're using a lot of NDI screen capture to get this into vMix, and then we're also using vMix to get a return feed back over to me, and then a feed out to LinkedIn, of course. So what is the delay? I think right now we've got a delay set of 150 milliseconds on everything just for absolute safety. And by the way, if you've not installed NDI 6.2 yet and you've not played with Discovery, this is so freaking cool. So Studio Monitor, if I have Discovery set up, Studio Monitor appears as an NDI receiver that I can then say, hey, I want you to tune into a different Multiview, or I want you to tune into a different NDI source in general, right? So like, oh, I want to see the remote desktop here. All right, cool, got it. So I can do that through Discovery. So very, very, very cool application, Discovery, and I think it's the coolest. It's the coolest feature. You will find a lot of uses for Discovery for NDI, and actually, it was the reason why I wrote Full View, which I'll talk about in a few minutes. But I want to talk for a moment, though, about some of the performance tweaks that I made to Multiview since the last release. So let's talk about performance, and I'll remind you about the performance metrics that we were looking at before. So the old engine that was based on SDL, Simple Direct Media Library 2, so that was the 2024 series. You'll recall that I had the ThinkPad T460, just, you know, an old corporate ThinkPad-y thing. You know, not a very good laptop, 4 cores, i5, 6350, not very good. The old Multiview, we could maybe do 30 frames a second on that. And the new version at the time, we had frame times down around 14, 15 milliseconds, consuming 3 high bandwidth 1080p 60 feeds, consuming 3 proxy HX feeds, and I think even sending out an NDI source itself, right? Now, I've tried to make a few performance enhancements since then, and I did a double check of these numbers just to make sure that I'm comparing apples to apples. I actually dug out an older build so that I could rerun all of these. With the latest build, running in nearest neighbor, so it's not the highest quality, this is just for sheer speed. In the latest build on that same ThinkPad, the same Multiview that was taking 14 seconds to render and send out as an NDI source as well is now doing the same scene at 3 milliseconds. Again, I had to go back and double check these numbers and rerun this test. Yes, it fluctuates between about 3 and 5, but the average frame time I was seeing on this ThinkPad was 3 milliseconds for a 1080p 60 output with 3 high bandwidth and 3 proxy HX feeds. You know, not a particularly tuned system either. So that's some of the performance difference that we're seeing in the latest version as well. Again, if you're going to be using linear interpolation, you're going to be running into, you know, your frame times are going to be higher. So, you know, don't run it on a T460. What I'm not saying is, you know, find a T460 because it runs like a beast on there. It doesn't, trust me. But I've done a lot of work to pull as much performance as I can, and I'm starting to hit performance walls. Like, there's certain areas of the application that, like, I can't pull any more performance out of them. There are definitely areas where I still want to pull performance. I think we can make the linear interpolation code a little bit faster, and I also think that and some of these changes have not yet been ported over to Mac. So it's Some of them have, but there's a few that haven't. I think we could get some speed improvements there. So, but overall, the performance is quite a bit improved. However, there was one feature that I have not talked about publicly yet, and I'm super freaking excited to announce this. This is probably, I don't want to say it's my favorite feature, but it's up there. It's up there. We use screen capture a lot of the time in our workflows. We use screen capture to get the return feed, to get presenter notes from PowerPoint. We use it to get the PowerPoint feed. Sometimes we even use it for IMAG. I know, shock horror, we use NDI for IMAG. It's impossible though. No, trust me, it's possible. It just depends on your signal flow. So we use screen capture a lot. And one feature screen capture has that's really freaking useful is KVM. Now, I'm wondering, whoever's watching live, I'm wondering, do you use Studio Monitor and Screen Capture to do KVM on NDI on a regular basis? Certainly, if you've got a TriCaster, you've probably used the KVM features there, but I'm curious, who has been using NDI Studio Monitor plus KVM over the last, I don't know, however long you've been using NDI stuff? Just curious here. For us, it's something we do all the time. Like, Mike, Luke, and myself, we're all over the place, right? We're scattered all over southwestern Ontario. I mean, just a few weeks ago, we were doing a show where one of our crew was back home, and there were a couple of us on site. And, Luke was cutting the show from his house. And we were, part of how he was doing it was through screen capture. So screen capture for NDI has a mode called KVM, where you can, well, let me show you. We'll launch into a quick demo, actually. I'll come in and use NDI Discovery once again, and I'll switch this to be, let's go Big Red Bridge, because that's where we're running. We'll KVM into our production system, right? So I'm now going to make my entire team sweat, because I'm now KVM'd into our production system, so I could hit the big stop streaming button right now. I'm going to hover my mouse over it just to tempt fate. Okay, cool. So, but I'm using Studio Monitor to remotely control the machine that's running this production, right? That's KVM. So I'm going to turn that off now. They're no longer sweating. So one thing that I've been wanting to have for a while is be able to control more than one machine from Studio Monitor via KVM. So you'll notice here I'm now tuned into Viewer 2, which is actually a 2160p screen. Let me show you Viewer 2, what this looks like, the definition of Viewer 2 here. So Viewer 2 is running at 3840 by 2160, and let's go. Viewer 2, 3840 by 2160. I probably have a broken thing somewhere here. I think I found a bug in the middle of this. That's hilarious. But 3840 by 2160, I've got 4 viewports set up here. You'll notice, though, that the KVM button is available. And that is because Multiview for NDI now has, and I'm proving it because I'm controlling the various machines right now. You'll notice as I move my mouse over the different viewports here, I'm going from machine to machine to machine to machine. I'm moving my mouse all over the place here. Multiview for NDI now has pass-through KVM. And this supports all of the KVM features that KVM Screen Capture NDI supports. So we do pass-through mouse events, we do pass-through keyboard, we do pass-through scroll wheel, and we do pass-through clipboard. So you may not know this, you can actually copy some text to the clipboard. We're going to do it live, actually. I'm going to see which window I have, which machine has focus first off. That's always fun. I will bring over Notepad here, and I'm going to say, hello world, check out Multiview for NDI.com. I suppose I could get rid of the spaces. I'm going to select all that. I'm going to hit Edit, Copy. I'm going to come down here to one of the machines. I don't even know which machine this is. I will fire up Notepad. And I'm going to paste that in. I'm going to use Control Scroll Wheel to zoom this in. And there you go. Hello world. Check out Multiview for NDI.com. That's using pass-through clipboard, which KVM supports. So if you've got a whole bunch of machines that you want to control now via KVM and screen capture, and you want to control them all from the same application, Multiview for NDI now supports native pass-through NDI KVM. What do we think? Luke says, this is my favorite feature. This is probably one of my favorite features right here. It just works. It's just really, really cool. So, and this is available today, by the way. So if you have a Multiview for NDI license, go to your Lemon Squeezy dashboard, and you've got that available. We'll be sending out an email shortly with some details summarizing all this as well. So yeah, we've got pass-through KVM as part of the latest build for Multiview for NDI today for Windows and Linux. All right, so that's the new stuff. I want to talk now about a new utility that is out. I was working on this last week, and it came from this application came from a need that we've had, which is we use NDI for IMAG. Yes, we use NDI for IMAG. But here's the thing. We don't generally send the IMAG signal out of vMix or a mixing system, right? With our NDI setups, we run multicast. And because we run multicast, that means the effort required to send a video signal out over the network is now shifted to the switch rather than the source itself. So that means instead of having the source go to a mixer and then go from a mixer output over to IMAG, we send that signal direct to whatever is powering the IMAG output. So what we needed, though, was a way to indicate that that source was still in program, right? And moreover, a lot of times when we're doing our IMAG, we're not using specialized converters. We definitely have them, but I actually prefer to put a little mini PC as my downstage monitor computer, as my IMAG computer, and just power, and power IMAG or power downstage monitors directly from that. What I've wanted to have for a while is a way to say all my HDMI outputs or all my physical outputs, I want those to appear as sources on my network that I can tune into whatever I want. And then the good folks at NDI bring us NDI 6.2, which has discovery, which means we can now control receivers from a centralized application. We almost do your signal routing and control all in one. So I created this application called Full View for NDI. What this does, very simply, is turns all of your physical HDMI outputs, think HDMI outputs on your main on your computer, it turns them all into NDI receivers. And the way that it's implemented is that we basically draw one giant canvas across all of the screens, so that way there's only one VSync and all the frames should be synced up. So Full View for NDI is a free application. You go and download it. We'll provide links. Again, I'm going to send out an email as soon as we're done this session. But I want to show you just real quick what it looks like. And we'll actually we'll go back and demo this on my machine again. What I'm going to do is go over to Discovery. And I've got Tractus PC1. I've got a little mini PC that is running Full View for NDI, and it's actually got 3 displays set up here: Display 0, Display 1, and Display 2. I've got Display 0 physically tuned into Viewer 2. I got Display 1 tuned in Test Pattern, and then I got Display 2 tuned into a second test pattern on my main machine. You may have noticed earlier that if we go to Viewer 1, one of my multi-views, that I have a program tally on my test pattern here. And that is because Full View is set up to be tuned into one of the test patterns. So another thing that Full View does is sends out program tally for whatever source is subscribed to it. So if I now, instead of saying PC or send out test pattern, I'm going to have that tune into my camera, for example. Probably help if I chose the right test pattern. Let's see here. It should be test pattern just 1. That should go away. Which test pattern is it that's actually on program? One of them is. Actually, it looks like some of them are flipping over. So I gotta double check which output that is, because that might not be the one that I'm thinking of. But we can flip. Okay, yeah, there we go. I flipped. That was test pattern, just regular test pattern. So if I now flip that flip this third display to be bigger at 2, for example, and we go back to full screen on myself, I'm actually going to point to a monitor behind me here. So on this monitor, I've got a physical HDMI multi-view running. Output 1 is one of the test patterns. Output 2 is my 4-up NDI display, and multi-view, and output 3 on that monitor from full view is one of the NDI test patterns. And if I start playing with this in Discovery, we'll stay on the full screen for a second here. If I do, let's see, I'll grab one of the GPU outputs and assign that to display 1, and then I'll grab one of the camera outputs and assign that to display 2, and I'll grab another camera output and assign it to display 3. So all I'm doing in Discovery is just picking which sources I want assigned to each physical output on that computer. And that can be done through Discovery, but it can also be done through, there is an HTTP API available if you're not running NDI 6.2 or you don't want to run Discovery for some reason. So Full View for NDI, that is a free application. It is out now. You can find it on my Gumroad. It's really cool. If you got 6 PC, yeah, okay, yeah, I see some chat about the NDI KVM stuff as well in Multiview. So Full View for NDI takes full advantage of NDI Discovery, NDI 6.2. Does not require it. Again, you can still set the outputs based on an HTTP API, so that is available. So Full View for NDI is out now. Hope you enjoy it. Hope you like it. Again, it's a free application. So coming in Q3, we're going to have an official macOS release. I know I've been saying we're going to have an official macOS release. It's in beta right now. Q3, it's coming. Trust me. We're going to re-enable NDI HX outputs. So that's H.264 and H.265. We're going to do that on Windows and Linux to start. Mac OS will follow later because Mac is Mac. And also, I've isolated all of the UI/VY render routines. So basically everything that powers the core engine of Multiview, any of the rendering, we're going to be open sourcing that by the end of the summer as well. And we got 1 or 2 surprise announcements that we're not going to talk about yet, but they're coming. So just going to tease those a little bit. And as always, you can find the latest build of Multiview for NDI, or latest news and information, and grab licenses at multiviewforndi.com. We also have documentation available there. There's also a Discord community, so hop in there. Again, everybody that's purchased a license, thank you, thank you, thank you. Truly appreciate you. Like, seriously. And keep sending photos of your setups. I love seeing them. I should also mention, too, there's been a fair amount of interest from integrators that want to use a Multiview as part of their installations. If you are an integrator and you're looking at working on something for a client and you need a Multiview, a native NDI Multiview, get in touch. We can work something out. So, yeah, if you're looking for Multiviews for your setups, let me know. Happy to chat. And that is all I've got for updates to Multiview for NDI, end of Q2. Going into Q3. So this summer we're going to be going into build mode. Things are slowing down a little bit, so everybody goes on summer vacation. And all that means for me is I get to write software and I get to write code, so that makes me happy. So looking forward to that. Again, I want to thank, I got way too many people to thank here, by the way. First off, everybody that's been in the Discord providing feedback, Jeff, Tucker, Jonas, Michael, everybody that's providing feedback, thank you so much. I appreciate the heck out of you. Half the reason the audio meters turned out the way that they did was because of the feedback I got in the Discord community. Like, I've been legit, I was struggling for, like, I was thinking about for 3 months how to implement audio meters. And then that discussion with Tucker, and there we go. We have audio meters now. And it was just, the path forward was obvious. So thank you to everybody that's been contributing to that. Again, if you've purchased licenses, thank you. I appreciate you. That makes a world of difference. And just looking forward to adding more features and adding new stuff and bringing you more documentation as well. I know that's one area that I maybe have not focused the most attention on. It's something I would like to improve for Q3, is to get our documentation to a slightly better place. So hope you are liking Multiview for NDI. Thank you for the feedback. Thank you for the photos of the behind-the-scenes setup. I know sometimes I can't share those photos. Don't worry, they'll be kept in confidence. Just know that it's really appreciated. So if you do have photos of your setup that you would like to share, please let me know. I would love to share them publicly. But that is all I've got. Let's just check the chat and see how everybody's doing. Yeah, we got some education on the NDI KVM stuff. Yeah, so the KVM stuff is, again, that's one of my favorite features just because it does give us the ability to, say, control a bunch of machines from one machine. Like it is a KVM, right? And then being able to do that all through Multiview, it means instead of opening up like 4 or 5 studio monitors to control 4 or 5 computers, you just have the one Multiview instance that you're tuned into. What else do we have here? I think that is everything for now. So with that, again, endless thank yous. Appreciate you, everybody that tuned into this live. You are awesome. Yeah, copy paste between PCs is amazing. Yeah, agreed. That's a really cool feature. Thank you as well to everybody behind the scenes at NDI that has given feedback or helped out. I appreciate the heck out of you guys. It was good to see everybody at Infocom as well. Yeah, that's all I got. So thank you so much for tuning in. Appreciate you. If you want to grab copies of Multiview for NDI, go to multiviewforndi.com. Grab your licenses. Remember, they're perpetual now. And every purchase goes to support independent software developer, us. So I appreciate the heck out of you. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for all your support. And we will talk to you again very soon. Take care, everybody. Have a wonderful day. Bye for now.